The fluorescent lights in the downtown medical clinic buzzed above me, cold and unforgiving. I sat on a plastic chair that wobbled every time I breathed, holding a number card that said 37. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure hunger. I hadn't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. Just 3 months ago, I lived in a warm house with a husband who claimed he loved me. Then bankruptcy hit us like a violent storm, and instead of standing beside me, he walked out the door with a suitcase and a cold smile. "Figure it out," he said. "You're the one who ruined everything." He didn't even look back. So there I was, selling my plasma for $40 just to keep my lights on. The nurse tied a rubber band around my arm, and I told myself not to cry. People around me stared at their phones, pretending not to notice the woman who had run out of choices. When the machine beeped, signaling the end of the donation, I felt the first tear slip down. $40. That was my worth now. But fate is strange. 2 days later, I got a call from the clinic. The doctor's voice sounded nervous, shaky even. "Ma'am, we need you to come in immediately. Your plasma sample, it's unique." I thought I was in trouble. When I arrived, 3 specialists were waiting. They explained that I had a rare genetic marker, something scientists had been searching for years, something pharmaceutical companies would pay millions for. I sat there frozen, the room spinning around me. $40 yesterday. Millions today. And the man who abandoned me, he was about to learn exactly what he lost. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Social Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now back to the story. The day bankruptcy shattered my life didn't start like a tragedy. It began like any other Wednesday. Coffee brewing, my husband Daniel scrolling through his phone, and the soft hum of our old refrigerator filling the quiet kitchen. I remember watching him from across the table, studying the man I once believed would protect me from every storm. His hair was still damp from the shower, his tie perfectly straight, his expression cold but controlled, like someone rehearsing how to deliver bad news without looking guilty. Bank sent the notice, he said without even looking up. Just 6 words, 6 bullets. I felt the ground tilt under my feet. For months, I had watched him get consumed by his business failures, late-night phone calls, meetings he claimed were about fixing everything, lies wrapped in confidence. I kept trying to hold our lives together, ignoring the sinking feeling in my gut that something was terribly wrong. When I finally forced out, "What do we do now?" he sighed, clicked his phone off, and said the sentence that still echoes in my bones. "I'll survive. You, I'm not so sure." It was the first time he didn't say we. We spent years building a life together, road trips, birthdays, Sunday mornings curled under blankets. I was the one cheering him on through every failed pitch, every lost deal, every mess he created but claimed was temporary. I held his hand through everything, believing he'd hold mine too. But when the numbers crashed, when our accounts dipped to nothing, when the creditors started calling, he stopped touching me, stopped talking to me, stopped seeing me as his partner. Every night, he ate dinner in silence while I stared at the wall, trying to figure out what mistake I made to deserve the distance. The house that once felt warm now echoed with unspoken blame. He slept with his phone under his pillow. He kept secrets. He stopped saying good morning. And yet, a small part of me still hoped he'd turn around and say, "We're in this together." That hope died the day he packed his suitcase. He didn't cry. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even meet my eyes when he walked past me with the zipper still open on his bag. I stood in the hallway clutching the door frame as he said the sentence that carved a wound inside me. "You're the one who ruined everything." The slam of the door was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. After that, the house felt like a graveyard. I sold my wedding ring to pay 1 month of electricity. I skipped meals so I could afford the bus to my job interviews. Each night, I slept on the living room floor because the bedroom smelled like him. But the cruelest part wasn't losing the money. It was realizing I was married to a man who only loved me when I was useful. That's how I ended up in that downtown clinic, holding ticket number 37, selling my plasma for $40. Because the person who promised to stand beside me ran first. The day bankruptcy shattered my life didn't start like a tragedy. It began like any other Wednesday. Coffee brewing, my husband Daniel scrolling through his phone, and the soft hum of our old refrigerator filling the quiet kitchen. I remember watching him from across the table, studying the man I once believed would protect me from every storm. His hair was still damp from the shower, his tie perfectly straight, his expression cold but controlled, like someone rehearsing how to deliver bad news without looking guilty. Bank sent the notice, he said without even looking up. Just 6 words, 6 bullets. I felt the ground tilt under my feet. For months, I had watched him get consumed by his business failures, late-night phone calls, meetings he claimed were about fixing everything, lies wrapped in confidence. I kept trying to hold our lives together, ignoring the sinking feeling in my gut that something was terribly wrong. When I finally forced out, "What do we do now?" he sighed, clicked his phone off, and said the sentence that still echoes in my bones. "I'll survive. You, I'm not so sure." It was the first time he didn't say we. We spent years building a life together, road trips, birthdays, Sunday mornings curled under blankets. I was the one cheering him on through every failed pitch, every lost deal, every mess he created but claimed was temporary. I held his hand through everything, believing he'd hold mine too. But when the numbers crashed, when our accounts dipped to nothing, when the creditors started calling, he stopped touching me, stopped talking to me, stopped seeing me as his partner. Every night, he ate dinner in silence while I stared at the wall, trying to figure out what mistake I made to deserve the distance. The house that once felt warm now echoed with unspoken blame. He slept with his phone under his pillow. He kept secrets. He stopped saying good morning. And yet, a small part of me still hoped he'd turn around and say, "We're in this together." That hope died the day he packed his suitcase. He didn't cry. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even meet my eyes when he walked past me with the zipper still open on his bag. I stood in the hallway clutching the door frame as he said the sentence that carved a wound inside me. "You're the one who ruined everything." The slam of the door was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. After that, the house felt like a graveyard. I sold my wedding ring to pay 1 month of electricity. I skipped meals so I could afford the bus to my job interviews. Each night, I slept on the living room floor because the bedroom smelled like him. But the cruelest part wasn't losing the money. It was realizing I was married to a man who only loved me when I was useful. That's how I ended up in that downtown clinic, holding ticket number 37, selling my plasma for $40 because the person who promised to stand beside me ran first. The weeks after Daniel left were a slow, suffocating descent into truths I never wanted to face. Bankruptcy had taken our money, but his betrayal took something deeper. At first, I tried to piece the puzzle together gently, telling myself he was just stressed, just overwhelmed, just human. I replayed our last arguments, searching for signs I missed. But the real picture emerged slowly through bills I didn't recognize, receipts I never signed, phone calls he used to silence with a swipe of his thumb. One evening, while digging through a box of documents I found in the closet, a single sheet caught my eye. A credit card statement with charges from luxury restaurants, hotels, and jewelry stores, all dated during the months he claimed he was working late. My breath caught. My fingers trembled. But the truth didn't care. My husband wasn't just neglectful, he was unfaithful, and he had been using my name, my credit, to hide it. There was a $6,200 hotel bill in Miami, a $1,900 dinner at a place I had never even heard of, a $4,800 jewelry purchase 2 weeks before he told me we had nothing left. I felt the floor disappear under me. The worst part, the jewelry charge included a handwritten gift message to L, my real future. Real future. Like I had been the practice round. My knees buckled and I sat on the carpet, the paper cutting into my hands as tears blurred the numbers. My marriage wasn't broken by bankruptcy. It was broken long before, rotting beneath smiles and small talk and Saturday grocery trips. He had already walked out emotionally. Bankruptcy just gave him an excuse to make it official. Then came the phone call that sealed everything. A debt collector told me Daniel had transferred multiple accounts into my name before he disappeared. He left me with the ruins of his choices. While he started a new life with someone else, I was left holding financial landmines I never planted. I remember sitting in the dark that night, the cold quiet pressing against my chest. For the first time, I whispered the truth out loud. He didn't love me. He used me. And the universe must have been listening, because the next morning I found a court notice shoved under my door. It wasn't just bankruptcy, it was fraud, and they were coming after me for answers. That was the day I realized I had no one. No support, no family nearby, no safety net. Just me and a pile of debts that weren't mine. The humiliation swallowed me in ways hunger never could. Every breath felt heavy, like the world was pushing me lower and lower until the clinic chair became the only place I felt invisible enough to survive. Selling my plasma wasn't a choice. It was survival. And all the while, Daniel was out there, laughing, living, loving someone else, while I bled through needles for $40. But destiny has a strange sense of timing, because while he was celebrating his shiny new life, mine was about to change forever. The morning after the clinic called me back, I woke up on my living room floor, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely held any warmth. The air smelled like dust and cold coffee. My phone lay beside me, the missed call notification glowing like a tiny warning light. Please return to the clinic. It's urgent. Those words ran circles in my mind, but honestly, I didn't have the energy to care. Urgent calls usually meant one thing: bad news, and I had run out of space in my heart for more of that. Still, I dragged myself up, put on the same faded jeans I had worn the day before, and walked to the clinic. The bus fare was out of the question. My legs hurt, my stomach felt hollow, but the shame of being late pushed me forward. When I walked through the sliding glass doors, the receptionist's eyes widened, not with pity, but with something like recognition. Oh, she's here, she whispered, picking up the phone. Send them out. Them? Since when did a broke woman who sold plasma for grocery money require them? Seconds later, 3 people walked into the lobby, 2 men in white coats, and a woman holding a folder packed so thick it looked like it might burst. They exchanged quick, tense glances before motioning me into a small consultation room. I sat, they stood. That told me everything. The woman introduced herself first. I'm Dr. Jennifer Clerk. These are genetic research specialists from the university. My heartbeat stumbled. University? Specialists? Dr. Clark opened the file as though it contained something radioactive. We ran your plasma through our standard tests. Something unusual appeared, so we analyzed it again. She hesitated, tapping her pen on the paper. Then we sent it to an external lab for confirmation. My throat went dry. This was too much, too serious, too sudden. Is it bad? My voice cracked on the last word. The man beside her stepped forward. Not bad. Extraordinary. He pointed to a set of graphs, lines soaring in directions I didn't understand. You have a rare genetic variant, something we've been researching for years, but found only in theory. Your plasma reacts uniquely with certain immune markers. In clinical trials, he exhaled, overwhelmed by his own excitement. It could change everything. Everything. A word that felt too big for my small, broken life. Dr. Clark leaned closer. Pharmaceutical companies have been searching for a marker like this. If you agree to work with us, safely, legally, and fully protected, you could receive compensation in the millions. Millions. The word didn't feel real. It felt like someone else's life, someone luckier, more deserving. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline, waiting for them to say there was a mistake. Instead, the second specialist lowered his voice and said, "You're not just valuable, you're breakthrough valuable." For the first time in months, I felt something warm flicker inside me. Not hope exactly, but its distant cousin. Still, I couldn't ignore the fear clawing inside my chest. "Why me?" I whispered. The room fell silent. Finally, Dr. Clark said, "Because fate finally decided to give you something back." My eyes burned, but I blinked the tears away. No.
I wouldn't break here. Not in front of people who saw me as more than the woman who sold her body fluids for $40. They explained everything slowly, how the process worked, how I would be supported medically, legally, financially. They even arranged a counselor and a hospital-grade nutritionist because my last plasma scan showed signs of severe malnutrition. For the first time, someone looked at me and saw more than my failures. They saw potential, worth, value. And I didn't realize until that moment how desperately I needed that. I walked out of the clinic trembling, not from hunger this time, but from the weight of a destiny I had never imagined. I had spent months thinking I was at the bottom. Turns out, I was standing at the beginning. A beginning that would lead to a showdown I didn't see coming. A showdown with the man who left me to starve. I wouldn't break here. Not in front of people who saw me as more than the woman who sold her body fluids for $40. They explained everything slowly, how the process worked, how I would be supported medically, legally, financially. They even arranged a counselor and a hospital-grade nutritionist because my last plasma scan showed signs of severe malnutrition. For the first time, someone looked at me and saw more than my failures. They saw potential, worth, value. And I didn't realize until that moment how desperately I needed that. I walked out of the clinic trembling, not from hunger this time, but from the weight of a destiny I had never imagined. I had spent months thinking I was at the bottom. Turns out, I was standing at the beginning. A beginning that would lead to a showdown I didn't see coming. a showdown with the man who left me to starve. The next 48 hours felt like I was living inside someone else's skin. Doctors, researchers, legal advisors, nutritionists, all suddenly orbiting around me, the same woman who had lived on crackers and tap water 3 days earlier. For once, my phone buzzed for reasons that didn't involve debt collectors. Every message, every call, every meeting built the same truth. My life was changing. Rapidly, violently, irreversibly. They scheduled more tests, each one confirming the same thing. My plasma wasn't just rare, it was revolutionary. The university drafted an offer, the pharmaceutical company drafted a bigger one, and then another came in, double the previous. I wasn't allowed to share details yet, but the NDA they handed me felt heavy enough to crush a man's arrogance. But even with all that happening, the universe didn't let me breathe peacefully, because fate wasn't done stirring the pot. The first conflict, the call from his sister. It happened on a Thursday evening. I had just returned home after signing preliminary contracts, my hands still trembling with disbelief, when my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Melissa, Daniel's sister. I almost let it ring out. Almost. But curiosity won. "Hello?" I whispered cautiously. The silence on the other end was sharp. Then Melissa exhaled shakily. "Where have you been? Daniel is losing his mind." I almost laughed. Losing his mind? He lost me long before he realized it. Melissa continued, her voice cracking. "He said he tried to call you, message you. He said you disappeared." Disappeared? No. I was right where he left me, in the ruins he created. I steadied my breath. Why does he care now? Another pause. Then, "He heard a rumor you're working with some research company. Something about your plasma? He said you're involved in something illegal." There it was, the first attempt to twist the story. I smiled bitterly. "Tell him," I said calmly, "that whatever he thinks he knows, he has no idea." I hung up before she could respond. The second conflict, the unexpected visitor. By the time night settled, my body was exhausted. I curled on the floor mattress I called a bed, letting the silence absorb me. A few hours later, a knock. Slow. Firm. Unmistakable. My heart stopped. I opened the door, and there he was. Daniel. He looked different. Not polished. Not confident. Desperate. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair unstyled, and for the first time since I'd known him, panic flickered in his eyes. "You look surprised," I said softly. He exhaled through his nose, trying to regain that old superiority. "We need to talk." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "I don't think we do." He pushed past me and stepped inside before I could stop him. Typical. He always walked into my life like it belonged to him. The moment he saw the stack of clinical documents on my table, his eyes widened. "What is all this?" His voice trembled. Anger, jealousy, fear, all tangled together. I watched him with a calm I didn't recognize in myself. "Opportunities," I said simply. He scoffed. "Opportunities? From selling plasma? Are you insane?" He picked up a file, scanned the top page, and froze. That's when the real Daniel surfaced. The one who measured everything by money. The one who left me starving, but couldn't stand to see me rise. He swallowed hard. "They're paying you?" A pause. "How much?" I didn't answer. His silence begged louder. Then he whispered the line that cut deeper than any betrayal. "You owe me." I supported you for years, and now that you finally have something, don't you dare shut me out. Supported me? He left me penniless, starving, alone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just said, "You walked out. That was your choice." Then I added, slowly, "And this is mine." His jaw tightened. "You'll regret this." "No," I whispered, meeting his eyes for the first time in months. "You will." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. And as the echo faded, I knew. This wasn't just a science deal anymore. This was war. A war I never wanted, but one I was finally strong enough to fight. The morning after Daniel barged into my apartment, something inside me felt different, like a fuse had finally burnt its last inch and the explosion was coming. Not from anger, from clarity. For months, I'd been surviving. Now, I was preparing to fight. The turning point started small. At dawn, I received an email from the university's legal team. Preliminary valuation complete. Estimated market worth $14.8 million. Initial phase only. I stared at the number so long my eyes blurred. $14 million. Just the starting value. My breath shook, my chest tightened. Not from fear, from the realization that destiny had handed me a weapon. But fate wasn't done shifting the ground beneath me. The press leak. By noon, everything changed. The head researcher, Dr. Clark, called me, panic crackling through her voice. "Someone leaked your case," she said. "Details about your genetic marker are online. Not your name, not personal info, but enough. Competitors are circling." My heart jumped into my throat. "Is this dangerous?" "It could be," she admitted. "But we're increasing your protection. You'll receive confidential transport to the facility now." Confidential transport. For me, a woman who used to walk everywhere because she couldn't afford a bus pass. This was the moment everything shifted lanes, from quiet discovery to corporate battlefield. The corporate storm. When I arrived at the university, an emergency meeting was already underway. Executives, lawyers, security officers. One of the advisors looked at me and said, "You're about to become one of the most valuable individuals in genetic medicine." The room fell silent. Another added, "If we don't secure your rights now, someone else will try to claim them." Claim. Me. Not the plasma. Me. A chill ran through my spine. Daniel's face flashed in my mind. His panic, his questions, his sudden concern. He must have heard something. Someone tipped him off. That was the moment I realized he wasn't back for me. He was back for the money. The legal shield. The university attorney slid a contract toward me. "This agreement protects you from any spouse claiming rights to your genetic compensation. You must sign today." I stared at the contract, the pen shaking between my fingers. Is that common?" I asked. "For people with your potential worth, everyone will want a piece." Everyone. Including the man who once watched me sell my plasma for $40 and didn't blink. I signed. My signature wasn't just ink, it was a boundary, a line in the sand, a door slamming shut on every piece of my past that tried to claw back. The message from Daniel. That evening, just as I stepped outside the facility with my security escort, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "We need to talk. It's about us." Us. The word tasted rotten. I didn't respond. A minute later, another message buzzed. "I know what you're worth now." There it was. Not love, not remorse, not guilt. Just greed.
I locked my screen and whispered to myself, he came back for the money. Then, for the first time in months, I didn't feel afraid. I felt powerful. Because he didn't know what I had now. Lawyers, protection, contracts, people who valued me, a future worth fighting for. This wasn't the weak, starving version of me anymore. This was the woman he underestimated, a woman rising from the ruins he left behind. And soon, the real storm didn't hit with thunder. It hit with a knock on my apartment door. A slow, deliberate knock. The kind that carried a warning. I froze. The security team had already advised me. Do not open your door for anyone you don't expect. But the knocking didn't stop. 3 beats. Pause. 3 beats again. My stomach dropped. That rhythm. I knew it. Daniel. I stepped back, pulse hammering. Another knock, louder this time. Open the door, he said. His voice muffled, strained. Not angry, desperate. My hand hovered over the lock, but I didn't touch it. Instead, through the door, I said the calmest words I could manage. You need to leave. He laughed, a hollow, humorless sound. We both know I'm not going anywhere. The confrontation. The door wasn't locked enough to stop his ego. He shoved it open with the force of someone who believed he still had rights to my space, my air, my life. He stepped inside like he owned the room. His eyes flicked to every corner. The new security badge on my table, the folder with university logos, the water bottle the chauffeur had given me. His jaw clenched. So it's true. You hit some kind of jackpot? Jackpot. He made my life-altering genetic discovery sound like a lottery ticket. I stood tall, even though a part of me trembled inside. It's none of your business. He scoffed. Everything you own is my business. My blood ran cold. He took a step closer. You know, I've been thinking, he said, tone shifting from irritation to calculation. We split everything when we married. Debt, income, assets. So if you were suddenly worth millions, he let the words hang, poisonous and heavy. I'm entitled to half. I felt a burn behind my eyes. Rage, not tears. You left me, I said quietly. He shrugged. I made a mistake. I stared at him, shocked. He wasn't apologizing. He was strategizing. You didn't come back because you care, I whispered. You came back because you're broke. His silence confirmed everything. The threat. Daniel stepped closer, voice lowering to something dark. Look, you can be noble and stubborn, or we can handle this like adults. Give me what I deserve, and we move forward peacefully. Peacefully. As if I owed him serenity. What you deserve? I repeated, disbelief choking me. You left me starving. His jaw twitched. You'll regret throwing this in my face, he snapped. I know things about you. Things that could ruin your little deal. He didn't have anything. But he wanted me to think he did. Manipulation, his favorite tool. My breathing steadied as I said the line I never imagined I'd say to him.
You can't ruin my life anymore. You already did that once. For a second, just one, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear. Because he realized the version of me he used to control was gone. Before he could react, a new voice filled the hallway. Sir, please step away from her. We both turned. Two of the university's security officers stood at the door, hands behind their backs, stance firm. Daniel stiffened. Who the hell are you? Her security detail, the guard answered. You need to leave the premises immediately. Daniel laughed bitterly. She needs security? From me? Yes, exactly from you. The guard stepped forward. Sir, this is your final warning. For a moment, Daniel looked like he might fight, but then he saw the second officer's badge and backed off. As he walked out, he pointed at me, rage twisting his face. This isn't over. I didn't blink. Neither did the guards. When the door shut behind him, the room felt strangely quiet. But inside me, a shift had happened. Not fear, not panic, strength. For the first time, I protected myself. For the first time, someone else protected me too. But deep inside, I knew. Daniel wasn't walking away. He was preparing for round 2. And the next battle wouldn't happen in my apartment. It would happen somewhere far bigger. Somewhere public. Somewhere explosive.
2 weeks later, the storm I'd been dreading finally broke. Not with fists, not with shouting, but with a courtroom summons delivered to my door. Daniel was suing me for marital share of genetic assets, for withholding financial gain, for emotional damage. The man who abandoned me during bankruptcy, who left me hungry, desperate, and alone, was claiming I damaged him. I sat on my thin mattress, fingers trembling as I held the papers. Then a strange calm washed over me. This wasn't just a fight anymore. This was the showdown my entire fall and rise had been leading toward. The courtroom. The courthouse felt colder than the clinic ever did. Marble floors, fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps, rows of strangers waiting to see a winner and a loser. When I walked in, my legal team flanked me. 3 attorneys, a medical expert, and Dr. Clark herself. I wasn't alone anymore. On the other side of the room, Daniel sat with his lawyer. Slick hair, sharp suit, fake confidence. He smirked when he saw me. That smug, familiar, poisonous look. Like he still believed he owned the ending of my story. I sat across from him, spine straight, hands steady. He raised his brows as if to say, surprised? But I wasn't. Not anymore. The opening arguments. Daniel's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, he began, this woman's sudden wealth is not the result of independent achievement. This genetic trait existed during the marriage. As such, her husband is entitled to compensation, significant compensation, as this asset was shared property. Shared property. He was calling me an asset, a product, an object. Daniel leaned back, satisfied, adjusting his cufflinks like a man preparing to cash in on a jackpot he didn't earn. Then my attorney arose. Calm, measured,
deadly precise. Your Honor, this case is not about shared assets. This is about abandonment, financial manipulation, and fraud. Daniel's smirk faltered. My attorney continued. During the marriage, Mr. Hale accumulated massive debt, all in his wife's name. He committed financial fraud, disappeared during bankruptcy, and left her in a state of severe malnutrition, forcing her to sell plasma to survive. A ripple went through the courtroom. Daniel stiffened, but my attorney wasn't finished. Her genetic discovery came after the divorce, after he left her with debt he created and emotional trauma he inflicted. He has no legal claim to her body, her compensation, or her future.
The evidence my legal team presented: credit card statements in my name, hotel bills with notes for L, my real future, debt transfers done secretly, fraud reports filed after he left, photos of my apartment during the lowest days, medical scans showing anemia and malnutrition, clinic logs proving I sold plasma for survival, and finally, the contract proving I alone held rights to my genetic compensation. Every piece landed like a hammer. Daniel's confidence cracked. And then came the moment that turned the entire case. The nurse's testimony. She stepped up and said, I was there the day she donated. She was pale, weak, shaking. She hadn't eaten. She whispered, I'm doing this because I have no one. My eyes burned. Daniel's lawyer objected. Emotional manipulation. The judge shook her head. Overruled. Proceed. The nurse finished softly. A woman shouldn't have to bleed to survive, especially not because someone she trusted abandoned her. The courtroom fell silent. Daniel looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. The final strike was the doctor. Dr. Clark took the stand last. She said, her discovery is not property. It is part of her biology. No one, even a spouse, can claim ownership of her genetic material. What she has is hers alone. She looked directly at Daniel. And you left her long before the world realized her value. He dropped his gaze. For the first time, he looked ashamed. The verdict. After hours of arguments, evidence, and attacks, the judge returned. Everyone stood. The air felt electric. The judge's voice was steady. Mr. Hale's claim is denied in full. I exhaled shakily. But she wasn't finished. This court recognizes the emotional and financial harm inflicted on Ms. Hale. Therefore, Mr. Hale is ordered to repay the debt fraudulently placed in her name and cover all legal fees. Daniel's mouth opened. The judge continued, and Mr. Hale is instructed to have no further contact with Ms. Hale. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel struck. And just like that, the war ended. I won. Not because I was stronger, not because I was richer, but because the truth finally had a voice. Daniel tried to stand, but his legs shook. He looked at me, anger, regret, humiliation, all twisted together. I looked back. Then I turned around and walked away, without a single tear. The police cars pulled away first, then the reporters, then the neighbors who spent the last 2 hours pretending to water their plants just to watch the chaos unfold. And suddenly the street went quiet. I stood in front of my house, holding a cup of warm coffee the officer handed me before leaving. The first sunrise in years that didn't feel heavy, pressed gently across the neighborhood.
For the first time, I could breathe without feeling like someone was squeezing my chest. Behind me, my daughter sat on the sofa inside, wrapped in a blanket, eating cereal like a kid again. Safe. Finally safe. My husband, he was taken to the county jail to face fraud, assault, and financial manipulation charges. His lawyer tried to negotiate, tried to twist the story, tried to make me look unstable. But the flash drive, the video, the recordings, and my daughter's statement, they broke his entire kingdom apart. By noon, his companies pulled his name from every document. His so-called friends deleted their photos with him. His brothers refused to answer the media. The mighty man who humiliated me in public now stood alone, exposed under the same spotlight he used to shame me. And me? I wasn't broken. I wasn't ruined. I wasn't the quiet wife hiding in corners anymore. I was reborn. In the evening, I opened my old laptop, the one I used to dream on, the one he used to laugh at, and I began typing the first chapter of my new book, a book about survival, about courage, about a woman who refused to die inside a beautiful prison. As my fingers moved over the keys, my daughter leaned on my shoulder and whispered, "Mom, you won." I didn't smile out of pride. I smiled because she finally felt safe enough to say those words. From that day on, my message became simple. When someone tries to bury you in silence, remember, silence is just the soil where stronger women grow. If this story touched you, don't just scroll. Share it with someone who needs strength today. Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.